Hey guys, welcome to No Boundaries, where we're going to be exploring some of the most exciting art that's happening in Houston and in Texas. We're going to be having direct conversations with artists either involved in the productions or directly responsible for it. This is not a review, this is not a critique, this is direct artist on artist conversation. I'm excited, I hope you're excited. Welcome to the first episode of No Boundaries. Hey guys, I'm here with my good friend Juan Sebastian Cruz. Juan, why don't you tell us a little something about yourself?
So I live here in Houston, Texas. I've been here now for about 13, 14 years, so definitely consider myself a local. I was born in Bogota, Colombia in South America, and I had my professional debut as a theater actor in 2017. It's been a couple of years now, and I'm excited to say I got cast in my very first production at the Alley Theater in The Winter's Tale.
Perfect. And now, talking about The Winter's Tale, how does it feel to have your face all over the city? I mean, I've seen you everywhere. You're on the face of the theater. I've seen brochures. I got the mailing list. I'm on the website. Everywhere. How does that feel?
Man, it feels incredible, and even more so being local, because I got people that I know that know me. They'll drive by the building and take a photo and be like, "Oh, yo, it's Juan. He's on he's the face of the show."
I texted you actually. I was like, "Hey, like, I saw you. What's going on? Like, yeah, you're doing it." And then I remembered that you talked to me like, "Oh, I'm starting in this production. Is this and that." I just didn't know it was gonna be that big. So man, it's a great look. Look, we're looking at it right now. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. It's awesome.
All right, man. So tell me about your experience here at the Alley. How has this experience differed from your other acting experiences? Do you like it? Do you not like it? I mean, tell me about everything that's going on right now.
I like it. First of all.
Well, yeah. I probably shouldn't have said, "Do you not like it?" Of course you like it, but just.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. I mean, I've worked with a couple other professional theaters, equity theaters here in town. Great theaters. Stages, Repertory, Tuds, Theater Under the Stars.
Right. All great theaters.
Yeah. But here at the Alley, I mean, it's one of the oldest, it's the oldest regional theater in Texas, and it's one of the oldest regional theaters in the entire United States.
True.
So, to have that sort of reputation and prestige and to be working here is fantastic. The contract is longer. It's a 9-week contract. Other theaters a lot of times have 5-week contracts. So it's a lot of work. But
a lot of late nights.
A lot of late nights, that's right. And 6 days a week you're out here, sometimes 8 hours a day, sometimes more.
The life, right?
The life, that's right, living the dream. But it's fantastic because the organization, I mean, everybody's on point. All the designers, the crew, the rest of the cast, the director, everybody's working really hard, to make this vision come true on this grand scale. And
there's a workflow. Everybody's on track. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. Every time I drive, even when I drive by here, because we're here quite often around these parts, right? Like the difference between this theater and a lot of the other theaters around town is that this theater, to me at least, looks like regal. It looks like it has this kind of history, and like anybody that kind of comes through the Alley is leaving a little bit of a stamp on that kind of for lack of a better term, the stonework of this building and what it does for people. So, how has this specific production? I mean, we're dealing with Shakespeare. This time. So, the level of the caliber of play that you're dealing with is not just some random. This is, arguably the greatest playwright of all time. Yeah. So how has that experience mixed with being here at the Alley? How has that affected your work, your process, just in general?
Well, it's fantastic because this is my first time getting to do Shakespeare professionally. I've done Shakespeare in college. I've done it in community theater. So it's definitely sort of like a rite of passage, I think, for a stage actor to get to do Shakespeare on a professional level. It's a really, really big deal. It's really, really awesome. And here it's been fantastic because especially getting to work with the resident company here at the Alley, seeing them tackle, and the out-of-town actors, of course, were tremendous. Seeing them tackle the language, tackle the script. How do we understand what Shakespeare's saying and keep that beautiful language and metaphors and poetry while also making it accessible to the audience?
Keeping the essence of the play
exactly,
intact,
yeah.
Right?
So all of that, seeing them work is influencing how I work, and it's also a challenge for me to bring the language to life, my character to life, and making it appropriate and accessible to like a modern contemporary audience, like here in Houston specifically.
Sure, this is a metropolis. I mean, it's a city. We just watched like 17 buses pass by.
Yeah.
So just, again, the duality, the dichotomy of being in this place that's so antique and still intact.
And now so cosmopolitan.
Surrounded by
yeah.
the technology that is Houston, the rustle, the buzz that is Houston. You know, for me, I'm super excited for you because this is probably the ultimate rite of passage, right? As an actor, you're dealing with Shakespeare on a professional level. That's fantastic. But then also being able to get immersed in Shakespeare's language, the story, all of it inside a city that doesn't necessarily lend itself to that simply on a face value level. You know what I mean? I could just imagine probably coming out of rehearsals and having to deal with the language that is Shakespeare, the way that he writes, the way that he talks, and then walking out to like an Uber. It's like it's really weird, right? You mentioned earlier the out-of-town actors, the resident company. Has their acting influenced you at all in any way? Has there been somebody in the company where you see the way they work and you say like, oh wow, like this is like a master class in itself, or this is like a crash course. You can't necessarily learn this kind of thing unless you're watching, experiencing, you know.
Yeah, well,
has that happened?
I think anytime I do a production, like you can always, if you're open to it, you can always learn from other actors and their process, because everybody's got a different process. You know what I'm saying? So like, anytime I get a chance to work with a professional actor or someone from out of town, I always ask them a lot of questions. You know, where have they gone where are they in their careers, how they got here, sort of like milestones in their path, and also in their specific processes. You know, do they like to memorize the lines first and then focus on their actions? Do they work from the inside out, outside in? Every actor has their own process.
Sure.
And I wouldn't say there's one person in particular that I've latched onto as far as what I've gotten out of it, but I really try to watch how everybody else works. And if I get a chance to run lines with an actor, to help an actor, if they're like, hey, give me some feedback on this, those are the moments you crave and you try to hold on to. See how they work, see what kind of work they're producing, and you just sort of log that information in to help your creative process.
Of course. So talk to me a little bit about your director. How has it been working with you?
Bro, so the director is Rob Melrose, which for those of you who don't know is the brand new artistic director of the Island Theater. This is his second show that he's directing here, and the first of this season. And it's been tremendous. He worked for a long time out in California with his own theater, and he came on board, and he happens to be directing the show. So not only is the artistic director, but also the director for this show. The artistic director oversees the whole season, and that opportunity is invaluable because we're working here on one of the biggest theaters in Houston with the new artistic director, and he's directing the show, and he cast me. Like that's a tremendous.
So you're just getting the whole experience.
Yeah,
then.
bro.
You're getting the whole experience. So has his process influenced the way you work? How is that different? How is his experience different than other directors that you've worked for? You and I have worked for some of the same directors around town, and just based on our personal experience together, just by ourselves, we already know that certain directors do a certain thing a certain way. Others have a different process, and that can actually, for not for nothing, but it can influence the way that we work.
Yeah.
So how has this specific director influenced the way you work, if at all, or has it just been smooth sailing? Talk to me about it.
So I mean, this director Rob incredibly positive, incredibly collaborative, which makes the atmosphere in the rehearsal room feel really open. You got people throwing out ideas, people saying, well, let me try this, and he's really open to seeing what you bring to the table. So that's allowed me to sort of explore a little bit more and try different ideas that maybe I would have felt a little uncomfortable with some of his status. Me being my first time working with him. There's a dialogue that you have to have, but he's making it really, really open.
So it's safe to say that he's very immersed in the creative process.
Yeah.
He really likes to be involved with everybody in the room. He likes minds to come together and kind of explore. With him having the final say. The final say,
yeah, for sure.
Right? But if directly opposing a director that's kind of like, I already know what I want.
Yeah.
This is what I need from you. Everybody get to your spots. Which we've worked with before, and that's great. But there's probably something to be said about you having your own little say in what's happening.
And what Rob has done well is, so the first show he directed here was Murder on the Orient Express, and it was very true to the story, a very honest design, and he knew that Houston audiences would like the show. Here now is his chance taking like creative risks. He's picking a Shakespeare show, and not an easy show. It's not a Midsummer Night's Dream. It's a very complex show.
It is.
But it's something that's dear to his heart. He's bringing a new vision to it. So instead of setting the show, in Shakespeare's time, he set it here in Houston, where the first half of the show is like cosmopolitan, like high-rise, wealthy Houston. And the second half of the show is more pastoral, rural, like mythic West Texas, King's Ranch kind of a thing. So he's trying to adapt this show that's near and dear to his heart to Houston audiences, and that's a risk. You know what I'm saying? Anytime you set Shakespeare in another setting, that's
you're automatically gonna have the Shakespeare fanatic, the true Shakespeare, the diehard Shakespeare fan that's gonna say, no, Shakespeare needs to be in Shakespeare. And you need to do the whole thing. You need to wear the garment. You need to do you need to do the whole thing, right? But it's interesting to see him. Talking about your director specifically, because he's such obviously probably the biggest influencer of the show. A Winter's Tale is not one of Shakespeare's most popular works. It's not one of his early works. It's towards the end. He's doing a lot of genre bending. He's doing a lot of melding of the traditional tragedy / comedy. It's long. Yeah. It's really long.
It's an epic for sure.
When I think about A Winter's Tale, I often think that there's like 3-4 storylines that merit their own book or their own play or their own dialogue or their own excursion, and he is really pushing for everybody to kind of follow along.
And he's taken this grand vision and given us this world to play with, and then has allowed us sort of discover our own characters within that sort of context, and giving that all the Houston audiences and saying like, here, what do you guys think about this? Like, this is me taking a creative risk. Are you guys going to come on board with me, or are you going to have critiques from me? And I'm open to hear that because he's the new artistic director.
Sure.
So he's doing a little push and pull and really pushing the boundary. No boundaries, but he's pushing the boundary on what can be done here at this theater. So I think that's really cool. I think that's cool.
Let's dive into the play a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I know not everybody out there is going to be familiar with Shakespeare. Not everybody is going to be familiar with this specific play as a whole. But just to kind of dive into some of the things that you said, it's taking out of England. It's taking out of that whole kings and queens vibe. It's in Houston, so you're gonna get direct references to the Metropolitan Live, West Texas. That's bold. That already in itself is taking Shakespeare out and putting it into a place that you don't necessarily think Shakespeare belongs, right? What other creative licenses has a director taken to kind of give us a better experience, or a more trustworthy experience, a more commonplace experience for us?
For sure. So first off, a little background on The Winter's Tale. It was one of Shakespeare's final plays that he wrote.
Right.
Sort of what's categorized as the romances. So, you know, he as the playwright took liberties in saying we're in one kingdom 1 second, now we're in this whole other place.
Sure.
We're crossing, you know, from the first act to the second act, 16 years pass. There's all these characters, these stories intertwined. So it's a big story to tell. So to make it more relatable to audiences here, not just in the director's vision, but what each individual designer has done. So the set designer, like in the first act of the play when we're in Houston, when you look out through the windows, you can see some buildings in the Houston skyline.
Okay,
like
great.
in the background that are recognizable to Houston audiences. The costume designer has made it so that it fits Texas, and it's not poking fun at Texas, but it's sort of like a love letter to Texas.
Sure, it's not mimicking or
Exactly,
not
yeah.
using it as
That's right.
a taunt almost.
Vocally speaking, the script and the text is still all Shakespeare's words, but especially when we get into the more rural Texas part of the second act, he's allowed for us to play with like a southern accent, like a Texas accent.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, exactly.
Is
So all of those little details.
how you take Shakespeare's words, you know, just the way he writes, just the poet that he is, how you take that language and make it Texas.
Yeah.
Has your director allowed you to kind of have a little twang, an inflection here and there, and how does that sound? Like, does that sound weird in the moment?
You know, I gotta say, like, you would think it wouldn't mash at all, but because the world has been built so beautifully and allowed us to sort of sit into that, and the theater, despite its size, actually feels pretty intimate. When you add in, once you have a mastery of the language and of the text and what it means, then you layer in these other things of the accent and the dialect or what have you, whatever you're playing with it. So it's understandable, and then it's something that's recognizable. You say, oh, I know people that talk like that.
Sure.
Or, and when you're in the first half, you're like, yeah, I see them. They got their whiskeys in their hand, their bourbons. They're at a very, like, you know, an elite party. You know what I'm saying? The Houston skyline in the back. And
there's plenty of those people here, so yeah,
exactly.
we know. Yeah.
And the casting is diverse, and then you get into the second half when you got the cowboy hats and the jeans and the boot cuts and the boots and all that stuff, and the language on top of that. Just all allows us to fall into the world of Shakespeare. So you're not just concerned with, man, what are they saying? But you get through context what is going on in a way that is more relatable to the audience, which I think is playing across really well right now.
I want to talk about one more thing.
Okay, cool.
Your character in the original play dies.
That's right.
In the original play, right? He doesn't die. Spoiler, he doesn't die in this production.
Yeah.
So talk to us about why the director decided to put this kind of, again, bold decision to a character that is typically killed off relatively early in the play?
Yeah, so my character, Mamilius, is the son of the king and queen of Sicilia, which if you don't know what that means, that's cool, but
come watch the show and you'll understand exactly what's happening.
All the things it is. But basically what happens is he's so grieved by all the crazy stuff that's going on that he dies early on in the show. And normally most interpretations of the play, that's it.
Yeah.
He's out for the rest of the time. However, Rob had this idea. One of my lines in one of the scenes early on is I tell my mother, I say, a sad tale's best for winter, and then I proceed to whisper a story in her ear,
okay.
and then
the play continues.
The play continues. So Rob read that and he saw the play is called The Winter's Tale. The boy says a sad tale's best for winter, and then he starts telling a story. What if the rest of the play is the story that he tells his mom? So in this interpretation of the story, my character it's told from my perspective and my imagination from that point on.
So you don't die?
So, I mean, I still die in the story that I'm telling.
You die in the story, but not in the reality.
But not in the reality. I continue to sort of narrate and tell the rest of the story. And you'll see when you come watch the show, I have toys and dolls that represent the characters on stage and the settings and different things like that.
Wow.
And so it becomes sort of like the imagination of this young boy and the sort of like romanticized version of what's going on.
Right.
Has now become my character. So my character goes from being the sort of symbolic symbol of like what, if you become too jealous or if you become a tyrant, like,
right.
You know, bad things can happen around you, and instead it's become much more of like a main character as far as like the narrator of the show.
Narrating the story, and it kind of changes that
it allowed for more creative things in the design process.
Sure, I'm sure.
And there's a twist at the end, which I won't say what it is.
Come watch the show.
Come watch the show. But that allowed us to play with that, yeah. So there's some really cool, interesting mixes between the tragedy and the very real high stakes versus like the imagination of this boy and how he chooses to tell the aspects of the story.
That to me is probably the most exciting part about coming to watch this, is that I don't consider myself necessarily a Shakespeare aficionado or anything like that, but I do know of him, and in passing, I've kind of had to deal with the Winter's Tale to some degree. But knowing that Rob has reimagined this story almost through the eyes of something innocent, is really interesting to me, because it can change the dynamic of what the adults are going through, what the adults are saying, and in some ways it's non-biased, because children don't necessarily like give you like an opinion in where, like, what adults are doing. They just kind of regurgitate what they're doing. So the idea of that potentially happening is very interesting to me, and just based on that alone, I can't wait to watch the
Yeah,
play.
man, it's tight. And again, the language, the words, the script is all the original text, but with just all these other creative layers thrown into the mix. So it's really cool. It's a really unique and a really solid version of The Winter's Tale. I had a director of mine that worked with me in college come see the show. He said he's seen the production 4 times, and this was one of the best versions he's seen. So
Well, there you go.
there you go.
You can't get any better than that. We should just end with that. It was a great time talking to you. Always super great friend of mine. Please come watch the show. Hopefully people that watch this become super interested in it. But it was such a great time talking to you. We hope that I hope that we do it again sometime. Your next productions, the next things that you get casted on, keep us posted.
I certainly will, man.
See you guys later.
Much.